So the next tool we have here for despilling is Keylight. And if you guys remember, I already talked about how Keylight, it does a 3-step process. It creates an alpha, it does a despill, and then it pre-multiplies. But you can use that Keylight to do any of those process independently. Maybe not the pre-mult, but you can either just use it only to create an alpha or only to create a despill. And that's normally how we use the Keylight, rather than just plugging it in, clicking a color, and then being done with our composite and merging this over. So usually we'll split it out to have more control. And how we can do that and how we can despill with Keylight is, rather than selecting the green color, what you can actually do is just, if you select it, usually it will kind of create an alpha in the area. But rather than just like taking the picker and selecting the green, an easy way to despill with Keylight is to just go to these three little boxes here, and we just put a 1 in the green channel here. And that will automatically kind of color correct that out, and we already are getting like a despill. But you see we're losing the luminance, so if we ever need to bring back the luminance, like Despill Madness has that option here to, let me just set this back to normal. Despill Madness has the option to restore the luminance. Let me set this back. So restore luminance. Keylight's not necessarily doing that, so we could do that minus trick where we kind of create a despill matte. So I could go here, say subtract, minus, and if I switch the input there, we get the green. And what you could actually do is take the saturation, put it to 0, and then you could actually plus this back onto your image. So if I put this to plus, not to overlay, to plus, you see we get that despill, but we kind of are maintaining a similar luminance value. So we're not going completely dark here. So that's one way you could restore the brightness, but also get the color out. So what's also good about Keylight in terms of despilling, you can control the screen balance, which you see if you look at the edges, it kind of does a pretty good job of like kind of sliding colors in and out. So if I kind of slide it there, I can kind of get a neutral, nice looking tone. Maybe if we were just despilling this side of the hair, what you can actually do is control these color values a little bit more. So we're not even concerned with the alpha. We're not even looking at the alpha. We're just doing the colors. And so you can play with these numbers by using your arrow keys. So if I hit the up and down arrow keys, we can kind of contaminate different colors into the background. So if I want like a slightly brownish color, like his hair color, I could go around and play with that and sort of try to get something similar to that edge. And maybe it would work on this side. This despill might work over here. So again, having a despill matte would definitely help in this case. But you can just basically you just play around with these color sliders, and you can push different colors in. And sometimes if it's a weird trick, but you can push these numbers negative, and it will actually give you like a brighter result. So these numbers, they don't really matter that much. You just need to play around until you see the color you want. So if I kind of play around with that, I could make it a little bit more blue. So the more I push this negative, the more it actually puts that color in. So it's kind of doing a weird effect. But you see now I'm getting a similar color to his hair. And this would be great for the despill of that area. So let's just keep pushing it further. I'm just using my arrow keys and selecting numbers, playing around and watching visually as I do this. So this would be a great despill for this specific area of hair. So if I actually copied that down into our script and plugged it in here, so we have like this overall Despill Madness doing this gray thing, but we have this lighter tan. We could just go here to key mix, plug it in, and then put a roto shape, and then just kind of roto on the hair here. And we can kind of blur it out by hitting, if I select the roto and hit E, we can feather out the points there. And now we can look at the final result and see if that's going to work out for our hair color. And maybe it's a little bit too strong. It looks a little bit too red there. But you can see there's all that gray and green in there, and we're kind of fixing a lot of it. So that's a bit too strong. So I can play with the screen balance, maybe pull it back a little bit, and that's, you know, getting a little bit better. Maybe we would need to darken it a little bit as well. So you could go, if you click the color wheel, you can control your colors like this instead. So I can control the value. Let's just take a look at that. Actually, the value doesn't do anything really if you're controlling it. So I guess you'd have to kind of control the colors independently and push them up and down. So you could do a slightly different color like that. And we can just look at that. And, you know, it's not doing a terrible job. It's actually doing a pretty good job. And we might just need to do maybe a little Despill matte and manually darken some of that area. So, for example, we have our overall Despill, we have our new hair Despill, and maybe we need another little patch there. So I would do a little grade here. I would do a Despill matte, same technique we did. So we just subtract it. A subtract B. So we're subtracting the color version with the Despill version. You can switch it around, doesn't really matter, but I'm going to take the green channel, wherever the values are. So if you hit RGB, you'll see that it's in one channel. And I'll put a shuffle node, put the green into the alpha. So now that is in our alpha channel. Now I can grade the alpha channel to make it more of a solid thing. And I'll plug that into the mask of this grade. Okay, so we have our, again, two Despills, gray. We have our hair Despill, but now I have a grade that I can darken the hair Despill a little bit. And now that's going to be too dark, but let's just check it out. So here's the difference. So you see, we're even getting a better result. Starting to get rid of some of the gray areas. Maybe it's a little too dark there, but it just looks a little bit better. And you see that now if we look at the difference between all that work we just did, you can see there's a massive difference in terms of our final image. So that's how we will go about solving our thing. And usually your Despill will be like colored patches everywhere. You might have one color here, another brightness over here. Usually I try to solve them with an overall one first and then fix the problem areas that come out of it. I'll save this here so people can just look at it. I'll call it Despill matte. So you guys can take a look. So that's pretty much the Keylight and how you can control colors with that and get different results. And then we'll look at the hue correct in the next video.